Of course. I think we are just coming on the live stream now, Trippy. How
Yep,
you
we
doing,
sure
man?
are. Doing what? Well, yourself?
Yeah, good. So between this is our second live now, and
Hmm.
between this and our last one, we've gotten a ton of listener and audience questions, and we wanted to spend some time today actually hitting a few of them. I know, Joe, you're eager to get to it. Anything you want to hit before I throw a couple questions at us?
I mean, the only thing I want to hit is the incredible thing today where Donald Trump said that unlike the first time he was in office, where he had to run America and just try to survive, um, this time he's running America and he's running the world. Um, I I just I want to get into the questions, but it's just stunning. I mean, actually, it puts everything. It makes total sense, right? The guy actually believes he's running the world, except the problem is the world didn't get the memo. Like so he's running the world. He's going to tell the world what the tariffs are, what trade is, and they're not cooperating. He's running the world. He's going to lower prices on day one, and eggs aren't listening, et cetera. And so I just think it was incredibly um, exposed the truth
Yeah.
that he is a dictator wannabe, and the Republicans in the House and the Senate who keep enabling this are just, I mean, are just just disgracing themselves. But anyway, let's get to the questions
Yeah.
from the audience.
Yeah, we've got a few today. I actually wanted to start. We'll stick it. We'll stick worldwide, not the 51st state yet.
Okay, great.
Uh, this is from Casey from Los Angeles, who just wanted to know: Canadian elections are today. Could the
Yeah.
results foreshadow our midterms? What are you looking at for our friends up north?
Well, this is exactly kind of gets into what we were just talking about. So, look, Trudeau in the Liberal Party was on the run. He got out, and they were in really damaged shape. The Conservatives were ahead big time and moving, and then Donald Trump started talking about making Canada the 51st state, and also started talking about 25% tariffs and everything else, and it just totally changed up that race in which Carney, now the Liberal uh, former finance minister, is now uh, has surged into the lead. The Conservatives are because they were so identified with Trump, and obviously the Canadian people are not happy
Yeah,
with Trump.
Polar was sitting pretty, and then all of a sudden,
All
I
of a
mean, and
sudden,
again, I think you'll get to it. Last couple days, even it's been.
yeah. Well, no, and so yeah, it looked like they might be coming back a little bit, but then in the last week or so, Donald Trump, as only Donald Trump would do, inserted himself again by once again starting to call Canada the 51st state, and all the rest. And now, if it seems to me, I think all the betting markets, everything are 79% chance, 80% chance that the Liberal Party wins, and
Yeah.
takes and remains in power, which would have been a stunning result. If you looked at where things sat, let's say um, January 20th of 2025, that back then, it's just been it has been it all there's been a tremendous backlash that seems to have really hurt the Conservatives and really uh, you know made a little bit of a resurge in a Liberal Party up there that looked like it was in deep trouble, and now looks like it may romp tomorrow.
Well, not that I was Googling while you were talking because I was paying explicit attention, but if you
Yeah.
Google Canadian elections, and again, I'm doing this from the States, but the top stories, I'm just going to read you headlines. The Independent: polls open for crucial vote after Trump and his trade war dominate. Al Jazeera: Carney Poilievre face off as Trump's shadow looms. AP: Canadians vote in election dominated by Trump's trade war. Politico, Canada versus Trump. BBC, Trump repeats calls for country to become 51st state.
Yep.
ABC, like over and over and
Yeah,
over
that's what he's
again.
been doing. And
In Canada,
it
you do
totally
not want to be the one that's on the Trump side.
Yeah, no, it had subsided, and then he started it all up again. And you just read an Al Jazeera headline, which could and there's video of it, so you could get in a little trouble there. Just saying.
Well, that's a future show if we make it that
Yeah.
far. All right, let's get to a couple more. This is from Jill in Phoenix. She has a two-parter. It's been easy to dunk on Democrats. They're either not doing enough or not doing anything at all. They aren't good at messaging and they just feel weak. Is there some fundamental flaw in the party that makes them this way? And are there any who are doing it right? I want you to focus on the first. We've talked about in the past who's been doing it. We've been showing a few examples, but what do you think, Joe?
Look, the real problem is, unlike the Trump MAGA party, where there is a king and everybody follows orders or bows and basically amplifies and deliver whatever message that he puts out there. There's no such thing like that in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, and frankly, no party in the United States was ever sort of created to be an opposition party to a dictator, or a dictator wannabe, or an authoritarian, right? I mean, and so I think that's what's you're starting to see it emerge a little bit. People like Chris Murphy in the Senate, Cory Booker when he did his filibuster. And I just think you're starting to see voices emerge. One of them will end up becoming a nominee. And unfortunately, in the Democratic Party, until there is a nominee, there is no leader of the party until we nominate somebody. And so that's why I think it's more important to get behind anybody you see out there who is speaking out, who's taking on the fight, and support them. And I mean, that's all the way from Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney all the way over to AOC and Bernie. There's a massive ideological spectrum of people who have started to speak out, and we should support all of them, and also create the big tent American party that destroys this authoritarian cancer that's out there.
I would just add, this is not right now about ideological purity tests. Right. This is not about, when Joe Trippi is saying we should listen to Liz Cheney, I think that's a good kind of barometer in terms of where we are here.
I don't think I can't think of one thing I've agreed with her on, other than democracy is threatened, the Constitution matters, and there's a danger in the White House right now that's betrayed us, that's failed, and is doing his best to destroy, a mass, kind of a destructive force that's wrecking both America and the world. We need to get him the hell out of there, and then let's have the big fights about some of these other issues, whether it be climate change, women's rights, all that. But the purity of, no, I won't let anybody who's pro-life in the big tent that has to stop him. Right. For instance, that test, it doesn't apply anymore. Welcome anybody into the effort to stop Donald Trump and this authoritarian cult that's doing its damnedest relentlessly to destroy the government and wreck America's place in the world.
I'd love to get back into a fight with some of our Republican friends about marginal tax rates, but that ain't where we are anymore.
We've talked about this. We fought Stuart Stevens and Rick Wilson. I mean, we had knocked down drag-out battles in Senate and governor's races, and some of the more even when I won against Stewart in particular, And he won his share too. I'm not that, but even when I came up on the top side, I basically did not ever want to face them. I mean, it was just bare knuckle fights on both sides. And, if you had told me back then, after, one of those races, oh yeah, later in your life, you'll be working with them and you'll be in the trench with them, I told you were crazy.
Right.
So, and the same with you, you'd say the same thing. So, yeah, if I'm sure at some point, Stuart and I and Rick will have, and you will have some disagreements about some future policies. But right now, there's only one that matters. It's saving the country, and creating a bottom-up pro-democracy movement that's broad, big tent, and unified in stopping what Trump and MAGA are doing.
There's a pretty good. I mean, I think this happened fairly over the weekend, but J.B. Pritzker stood up and gave a speech, basically said Republicans cannot know a moment of peace, and said something like their portraits will be put in museums reserved for tyrants and traitors. That's better than like the strong letters that you're getting from some of our wonderful Democratic friends and colleagues in the Senate. Like, that's where we got to go, man.
No, and we had an ad on that Trippi Show podcast a couple, I guess last episode before that, where I think it was one of the most important episodes we had. I hope people go give it a listen. But what she said was, look, we've got to call this what it is. This is a regime. It's it's someone who. It's a bullying movement on behalf of billionaires that are basically don't have any concern with wrecking things that make life harder on the American people and create damage around. As long as they have the power and he has the power, that's all that matters. And so, no, I think Pritzker. And people are saying, well, it looks like that means he's running for president. Okay, I hope so. We need, that's what I'm saying, 6 or 7, 8 people out there, 12, 15, 20, across the spectrum, all people who I guess people will assume are running for president because they're actually saying the truth and taking this on. God bless all of them. Get them all out there. That's how we'll get a message and get people unified behind one. It has to be across the spectrum. It has to be putting purity test aside. People worried about Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger joining that effort, or people worried about AOC or Bernie out there. I don't want to hear it. We have to all just put our oars in the water and kick some ass.
I love that. So here's a good one on how to counter it. This is from Pete in North Carolina. Bannon's flood the zone with shit plan seems to be working. None of us can focus on anything. But Joe, if you had to focus on one thing, what would it be?
It would be that's part of what we're saying, that you have to put all the purity tests aside and build the big tent, be part of the big tent movement that stops this, that saves the country. It's got to come from the people. It's got to come from the bottom up. Leaders will emerge who speak to it, who get in front of it. Pritzker may be one of those. But lots of them will be people who run for office this year in 2026 that we never heard of. Because it's you, somebody listening to this, run for something. I mean, get engaged in taking this back and stop worrying about fighting each other. There's only one battle to be won, and that's to save the country from Trump and the madness and chaos that he's creating in our country for working people, and what it's doing to America's standing in the world. I mean, destroying, frankly, the 250 years of we created it. Other generations of Americans created this incredible country, and are standing in the world. They created that. Many by giving up their lives, a lot putting their livelihoods at risk, all to build it. And he's wrecking it. I mean, absolutely wrecking it. People aren't coming here anymore. I mean, the just tourism alone, just those numbers are just astounding. The numbers of people from around the world that have canceled their plans to come here. Why? Because they don't want to get sent to a gulag in El Salvador without at least somebody saying what the hell happened and why and have a day in court. And so it turns out like that he's a dictator wannabe, and the world's getting the message and it's responding. And yeah, so one thing we can do is wake up every American, talk to one friend, one family member, one coworker, get them to understand the threat and ask them to join in taking it on. And whether that's getting them to join Lincoln Square, listen to the podcast, go to a hands-off rally or a Bernie Sanders event. One of the things I think is going on with the Bernie Sanders stuff, the reason they're getting 30,000 people crowds, is I think millions of Americans out there just want to know, what the hell can I do? And so, well, hey, it turns out Bernie Sanders is coming to do a rally. That's something I can do. I can go to that. I think maybe 50, 60% are true Bernie fans who believe in his progressive message. I'll bet you some huge number of the people who go are not necessarily really fans of his politics, but are just grateful that he's out there giving them something to do. I can go to that event and I can bring somebody with me. That's what you can do. It's build, resist, and refuse. That's what we all have to do, resist and refuse. And, so now there's a No Buy 2025 movement, which I think makes tremendous sense. And you and I have both been talking about this. Stop buying stuff that you don't need and start saving, because that's what I think you need to be for your own protection and your own family. Be able to weather the economic downturn that Donald Trump is creating. And so I think there's lots of things that you can do as an individual, all of us can do, but more importantly, join the movement. I think and that can be as simple, like I said, as turning other friends onto podcasts, turning into messages, reading Heather Cox Richardson. I mean, there's all kinds of really good people out there who are providing information, and you can join. We are starting the Pro Democracy Social Network, Says Us, where it's about creating a civil place where you can discuss all this stuff and get other people to join the movement and find things that are going on and the tools to resist and refuse. But that's what we have to do from the bottom up, and it's creating our own messaging system, our own message hub to basically stand up to all the propaganda that these guys are spewing.
So, Joe, I think that's a good place for us to call it a day today. I just want to point out to our listeners, if you do have more questions for us, and we promise we'll keep getting to them, sounds like our podcast actually, post them in the notes on the chat on the Lincoln Square Substack. We might get to them next time. Keep them coming. We promise we do actually really get to them. You can also email us, thattrippyshow@gmail.com, but keep them on the Substack, and let's see what we can do. Joe, take us out, brother.
No, thanks, Alex, and thanks everybody for sharing this part of the afternoon with us. Again, you can. We'd love to answer more of your questions. We did a better job on this live than we really have ever done on the podcast, because I tend to just rant and we never get to them. So this is fun, I hope, and important, and I really appreciate. We really appreciate you giving us your time, and please submit questions. Everything from what I did with the Money in the Dean campaign to what's happening now with Trump. and what we need to do. Thank you.